telling us your name and your occupation.
Okay, my name is Ray Brassier. I teach school at UL. I teach anthropology.
Now, what do you think literature is?
Well, for me, literature is a word that is used in Indo-European languages, and it comes from literatura, Spanish and Latin originally, and you find it in French, literature, and that's where literature, the term literature comes from, and it means something to do with letters. So it has to do with letters. And so it has to do with writing and then reading, because that's what writing is for. It's for reading. So literature to me is something that's been around for 7 or 8 thousand years, and it has come in many different forms, and you find it in different characters. It's something to uh, the history of literature is not really that old in humankind, and it always has been a kind of an elite sort of a enterprise. So those that could read were very special, and today we think of people reading literature as very commonplace, but it's not in the world. There still is a special case where people can read, and in the world it's not as common.
Blair Stevens, student biology, graduate in May. I think it's anything that has to do with writing or reading. Anything you write, read. Novels, books, poems.
I'm Dana. I'm a sophomore and I major in psychology.
Okay, what do you consider literature?
Short stories, poetry, books.
Paul Eaton, Director of Orientation, UL Lafayette. What would I define literature as? Okay, well, I would say that it's any form of individual expression that is either fictional or non-fictional, because there are many forms of non-fiction that I think are also literature. And basically that's telling a story or conveying a series of complex thoughts in varieties of different ways. Of course, literature comes in many forms. You know, there's novels, poems, essays, biographies, autobiographies, plays. I'm sure there are many. Haiku, for some reason, pops into my head.
Now, if you had to pick your favorite writing, what would it be?
I'm into nonfiction of different kinds.
And you think nonfiction is literature?
Or like I say, literature is anything to do with letters. So if it shows up in a letter and it can be read, and it's a series of letters that produce meaning, to me that's
I like the Hunger Games, Twilight series, Harry Potter.
Why do you consider those books literature?
Yes.
Why?
Because somebody had to write them and they're enjoyable to read.
Okay, do you consider poems or songs literature as well?
Yes.
Why?
Because you have to think about it, write it, people read it, people sing it.
I like Adam's Curse. It's a poem by William Butler.
Do you consider that poem literature?
Yeah.
Why?
I mean, because it presents ideas and beliefs and characters and put them all together. That's literature.
Okay, would you also consider a song literature?
I think it's a type of literature. I think songs, in a way, are poetry, just set to music. So, I consider poetry literature. So
I would consider a poem literature, but maybe not a song.
Why?
Because I feel like a song is more like musical, and that's just a separate category.
A poem and a song is also literature?
if it's written. If it's just oral, a poem and a song can be just oral. We have epic poetry, for example, that was transferred generation to generation through the centuries in oral form. There's even a term called oral literature, which seems to be a contradiction because it's oral literature, but I think what it wants to suggest is that oral literature at some point in history is written down. It's written down and then it goes back and forth between oral, completely oral tradition and written tradition, and over the years it goes back and forth. Somebody hears it orally, then they write it down, and somebody reads it, then they perform it orally, and somebody picks it up. So anyway, there's this interchange between orality and literature in the long history of this business.
Now, do you think literature, the idea of literature, has changed from now, as in 20 years ago?
20 years ago? Yes, I think it's changed.
Well, literature is always changing, of course. What I think has actually changed is the way that people consume literature. So you have several things going on, right? You have the rise, which this has always been true, but I think it just seems more pronounced in our day and age. You have the rise of popular literature, mass popular literature, okay? Harry Potter, the Twilight series, right now it's the Hunger Games. You know, these are books, the Da Vinci Code, like that whole thing with the Dan Brown. These are books that like get consumed by mass quantities of people. Well, of course, you know, in the 19th century, 18th century, you had similar sorts of things, but novels were produced, you know, in magazines, and so you would get a chapter in every edition of a magazine, and that's how people consume novels. Now you just have this mass production of these books, and of course that's tied also to the movie industry because everything is interconnected. So people want to read the books because they love the movies, or they want to read the books before they go see the movie, whatever the case is. So that's the first thing I would say, is that you have that kind of literature. But then you also have the rise of Nooks and e-tablets and Amazon.com and all of this kind of stuff that's happened because of technology, which has really given people more access to literature and to books. It's made it easier to consume because it's easier to carry around with you. You don't have to necessarily lug a hard copy book around.
Yeah, I think it's going to, literature is turning into something that has to be image-based, so it's supported by image, if not multimedia. So yeah, I think literature is changing and it will change.
All right, thank you.